When I was in high school, I used to hate interval workouts, but now I love them. Stay tuned, I'll tell you why, and we'll delve into my latest workout and go deep into the data. Hello everyone, welcome to Running Otaku. I am the Running Otaku. And today, you can see behind me, we're in Bali. Well, okay, we're not in Bali, I'm not even in Bali, but I used to live there. Story for another episode. Anyways, I used to live in Bali, and these are some of the photos I took. Since we're in the deep part of winter, I thought some of you might appreciate some paradise. So today is episode 9, intervals. And as I just said, when I was a kid, I used to hate them. Why? Well, because I was stupid. I'm only a little smarter now. But the reason I hated them was because I ran them all too hard. You see, what I would try and figure out was how many intervals are we doing and what was the recovery. And then in my mind, I would figure out what's the maximum pace I could sustain for those intervals. And that's totally the wrong approach because each interval has its own purpose. For example, you might do really short intervals, also known as striders, which could be just 10 or 20 seconds long, and you're running maybe 90-95% of your maximum. And that's not for aerobic benefit. You're not going to get much kind of cardiovascular improvement out of that, but you will get a lot of improvement in your form and muscle power. So for those kind of striders, it makes sense to really come to a full rest, because if you're running them hard and you go again, 10 seconds later, you're not fully rested, your form's going to degrade and the whole purpose of that strider is lost. Likewise, if you're doing something more along the lines of what people call like a VO2 max type workout, where you might be running reps close to your 5K pace with a little bit of recovery in between, there it makes sense to have a little bit of a shorter recovery because you're trying to train your cardiovascular system in that kind of narrow band of that VO2 max type intensity. And if you rest too long, you drop below and you waste the first half of your next interval just getting your body back up to that level. So it depends on what you're trying to do, but in any case, almost never are you trying to max out your speed on any one interval. Perhaps that's different for sprinters. I don't know. I've never trained as a sprinter and I'm not fast. But that was a mistake I made. I just simply tried to go about all of my intervals way too fast. And that's why I hated them, because after the second or third one, my form would deteriorate, my times would slow down, and I would just get discouraged and frankly pretty darn tired. But I've grown up since then. I've read a lot of books, and now I understand that with each different kind of interval workout, there's a purpose behind it. And so I understand what that purpose is before I undertake the workout, and I make sure I stick to the intensities that are required and don't go any faster than that, because otherwise the whole purpose just gets lost. Okay, so a couple of days ago, I did a really interesting interval workout. In fact, there were 3 components to it. So let's take a look here. This was the run, as you can see in the upper corner. It was a 71-minute run, which covered 9.4 miles and 15 kilometers. The distance was secondary. The whole workout was structured to fit within 70 minutes or so. But anyways, you can see the components here. So this zigzag line is actually my power outage in terms of wattage. And I'll get into that in just a second. But you can see the spikes, meaning I was doing an interval. And when it spiked down low, that means I was doing recovery. Anyways, there was a 20-minute warm-up. And then went right into the intervals. The first one was 16 times 1 minute at my 5K pace. This was tough. That's 16 minutes of 5K pace running. My 5K time is about 18 minutes, so it's almost like doing a full 5K race. Of course, I had some rest in between. It wasn't a lot. It was only 30 seconds. So 1 minute on, 30 seconds off, 16 times. And then the second set of intervals, let's see if I can get this to pop up on the screen. Yeah, there we go. 60 times 30 seconds hill repeats. So this was running up a hill at the same effort I would have if I were running a 1500 meter on the track, so pretty hard. So up the hill for 30 seconds and then a full minute recovery coming back down. And then the third section was 6 by 20 seconds at 800-meter pace. And these are essentially striders. So it was on flat terrain, doing 20-second striders, and then doing a 40-second jog recovery. And then ended it off with an 11-minute cool down here. So let's talk about the purpose of these 3 intervals. The first one, the 16 by 1 minute at 5K pace, this is kind of analogous to what I was talking about earlier with kind of a VO2 max type workout. It's building up that kind of almost that threshold between aerobic and anaerobic. And so that's why the rest period in between was quite short, only 30 seconds, because the idea was not to let my body fully recover, but to keep the cardiovascular system at a pretty high level, so that when I jumped right into the next interval, I wasn't starting from zero. I was starting from a pretty high level. Next were the hill repeats, only 30 seconds. So this is a little different. This has much less to do with cardiovascular condition and much more to do with form and power. So here there are 6 of them, and then it was a 1 minute recovery, because the idea was to be pretty well recovered, because the focus of this set of intervals, again, was form and kind of strain training, and you want to be fully recovered in order to get the full effect of that. And then the final was the 6 by 20 striders at 800-meter pace. And this, again, is not so much about cardiovascular conditioning. It's about technique, right? We don't think much about technique as runners, right? We learned to run when we were about 2, just left foot, right foot, left foot. But it's more than that. And so this kind of helps you biomechanically get better technique, because for most of us, especially for me, my technique is much, much better at higher speed than it is at lower speed, even at 5K pace. So this is a percent of horizontal power. My last video, I did a deep dive into what power meters are and kind of what they measure and how to use them. And if you go right up here, it could be here, but I think it's right up here. I'll provide a link to that video, in which in part I explained horizontal power and a lot of other things. But basically, when you're running, you apply power in 3 different planes, right? You can go forward, you can go up as your body bobs up and down, and you can, pivot or go left and right. So this percent horizontal power is what percent of the total power output of your legs was applied to pushing you in the forward direction. So the higher the number, the better. And you can see the difference in these 3 types of intervals. So the blue, again, was this 1 minute interval at 5K pace. My average forward kind of horizontal power as a percent of total power was 77.6. And then when I went to the hill, it was 81.2, and then the strider 79.7. So what's this telling us? Well, I think these numbers overall are actually pretty good in the absolute, but the relative position is interesting too. So the higher the number, you could think of it as the more efficient you're applying power. And you can see here on the uphills, I was the most efficient of all. So I wasn't wasting much energy in pushing myself up or side to side. Really concentrated on that form, like I said. And it shows in this horizontal power number. The flat 800 meter paced 20-second striders was pretty good too, but not quite as good. So apparently when I'm running on the flat and really kind of going for speed, I'm probably bobbing. I might be bouncing up a little bit too high, but there's a lot I can learn from the hill repeats that I need to apply to those striders. Running efficiency. So again, this is not running economy, which is pretty commonly used in the world of running, and that has to do with how much oxygen you need to burn to sustain a certain effort or pace. This is a fraction with your speed or your pace in the numerator, and the denominator is your power to weight ratio. So it's essentially how much speed can you get given that power to weight. And the higher the number, the better. Anything less than 1.00 isn't very good. Anything above 1.05 is essentially rarefied air of the elite, world class. And 1.01 or so is good, and 1.02 and 3 is a lot better. So here you can see on my 1 minute repeats at 5K pace, I average 1.01. So that's okay, right? That's middle of the pack running, which is kind of where I am right now. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. It looks like I had a couple of these in 1.07 and 1.04, but I think that was probably just a little bit of data anomaly. So again, just like the last graph, this shows me that at slower paces, even at my 5K pace, I'm just not a very good runner, and I have a lot of improvement there. Well, all right, that just about does it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. If you really liked what you saw, then please hit the subscription button, or maybe it's the subscribe button, and there's a nice little bell there. You click that, and every time I post a new video, you'll be notified, so you can keep track of my Boston Marathon training through all my trials, travails, turbulation. I can't think of any other word that starts with a T now. But you can follow me as I try and get better. So that's it again for now. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, next episode, I've got a big confession to make. So stay tuned for that. Until then, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.